Morning. I hope everyone is doing well and taking care of their mental health.
And my camera is moving.
Good morning. I hope everyone is doing well and taking care of their mental health. I do have some updates about something that recently happened with my son. We called the specialist and was like, hey, this is what his bruise looks like. What should we do? She called me back and said, take him to the ER. I called the ER. They have his treatment available for you guys and they can give him treatment. I think that's our best step moving forward. We're like, okay. We get to the ER and they were very kind there. So happy with how we were treated. The doctor comes and says, I am so sorry. We thought we had factor 9 treatment, but we only have factor 8 treatment. We're like, okay, so what are our options? So he gives us about 3 different options. One of the options I didn't like, talking to other moms in my hemophilia group, it was just a lot. I didn't want to do the option. So I was like, what are our other options? What if we don't do that option? What's going to happen? My husband and I took a deep breath. We thought about it. I called my parents to kind of tell them what our options were that we were given. And, we thought about it. It was like 5 minutes, but to me, it still felt like a while. But, just to breathe and think, what are our best options for our son? He was still coherent. He was happy. This was like 9 o'clock at night. He was in bed when the specialist told me to take him to the ER. We're like, okay, we told them our option, which was going to be flown to a children's hospital. So they're like, okay. So it took some time for the paramedics to get there. They strapped my son in. He doesn't know what's going on. They did take his blood at the hospital. They were checking some of his white blood cells and things like that. So I fly with my son to the children's hospital. They get him there. The flight was about an hour long. The hard part was when I got there, there was about like 4 nurses, 3 doctors. They all come in the room.
They're looking all over. They're looking at my son. How did he get this bruise? Where did this bruise come from? How do you know he had hemophilia? So this was like 3 different doctors asking me all these questions. My son is screaming because the RNs are trying to figure out to get a IV put in him.
So at that moment, I think I felt very overwhelmed. It was 2 a.m. at that time. So I usually go to bed at 9. Was a little tired. So there was that factor also. I tried to explain it the best I could. At that time I was like starting to cry because I felt very overwhelmed because my son was also very upset. They got the IV put in and they gave him his factor treatment. And so that was good. They drew some blood from him as well before. And they decided they were going to admit us. So my husband drove there. It's about a 4-hour drive. He got in about 4 o'clock. We also get into our room and he, sees our son. Then they bring in the crib for my son and it looks like a horrible, it was a horrible crib. There were still metal bars. So he is jumping all around, grabbing the bars. He gets his foot stuck between the bar and the mattress. So we tell the nurse, this isn't working. It's 4 a.m. He hasn't slept all night and he's banged his head 3 times. She was there when he banged it 1 time. She's like, okay. We told them we're going to get the pack and play and we're just going to put him in that. And she's like, I'm going to have to ask if that's okay. If we can do that, that might be a liability. We're like, but this is our option. What else are we supposed to do? He literally is hurting himself in this crib because he has hemophilia and he doesn't have blood clotting. That obviously we don't want him smacking his head on a bar in the crib. So we get the crib in and he's doing good. And we finally, another nurse comes in and she says, okay, we just want you all to get some rest. Well, there's no bed for my husband. It's a chair that doesn't even recline back. So my husband has to sleep in the chair. They set out a bed for me. Probably the most uncomfortable bed, but honestly at 5 a.m. it felt pretty good. So I fell asleep. 7 o'clock, the nurse comes in. Oh, we have to check your child's blood pressure. We have to do all these things. Okay. So they wake my son up and the blood pressure machine isn't working. She's trying to get it working and the monitor itself is not working. And she was nice about it. She's like, I don't know why this isn't working. Another doctor comes in. Finally, they fix it. We got my son back to sleep. He had gotten some food. We gave him some breakfast. She comes in, the nurse, and nice. Was like, we're going to have to check his blood pressure. And I was just like, can we please wait? He literally just got back to sleep. He hasn't slept all night. I mean, we just want him to get a little bit of sleep. And she was like, yes, of course. So that was really great that she was understanding. We talked to the hematologist. She said there's 8 clients or 8 children they have with hemophilia B, and only one of them doesn't have a port. The hard part about not having a port is if we are traveling and we cannot do the injection ourselves, that some hospitals will not accept the factor treatment from parents because of liability reasons, which I understand. So the problem is then as well is we have to keep that in mind. Now, baby veins are really hard to find. He has to be injected in his vein with the factor replacement treatment. So we can't just give it in a muscle or a skin. It has to be his vein. And we have to hold them down when they insert things into his vein. For my husband and I to try to learn that is a lot. So I think the port is the best option. That way when my son does have a bruise, we can quickly give him his treatment and we're done. It's not such a big visit. So the hospital here was very kind. They apologized. Sorry, we don't have your son's treatment. So I will say I was very thankful for how they treated everything. And the doctor was honest and was like, I'm not a hematologist. I'm going to have to talk to the hematologist. And they assured me that they will get factor 9 replacement treatment at the hospital. That way, if something happens, they have it. So we are going to start treatment for my son next week. We haven't figured out who's going to give him his treatment, how that works, but we will get the actual treatment product to our house. The treatment they gave us at the hospital is only a 24 to 48 working factor. We're going to do at least once a week factor. So things are moving forward. This was really unexpected. As a mother, it's hard seeing your child in a hospital bed, getting IV inserted into them. He's so young. He doesn't know what's going on. I think the hardest part was they had to put a board on his hand to keep his IV in his hand. And he's like, that. And he has the sweetest face. So when we're in the hospital bed and he looks at me and he's all, Dad, because he doesn't understand and he doesn't want that thing on his hand anymore or an IV in his hand. I understand. That's like confusing. It's hurtful. Like, Mom, what is this? So I think that was one of the hardest parts. Nurses are amazing. I personally can never be a nurse, but oh my goodness, being a nurse is like, it has to be so challenging. I could never imagine having to work with sick children all day. Like, oh, that'd be heart-wrenching on me. But I'm so thankful there are people who have it in their heart to do that. So if you are a nurse, thank you. If you're a child nurse, thank you. So that's kind of the update.